Welcome, everyone, to our first roundtable discussion on the Dangote Refinery. Today, we'll delve into this insightful article that highlights the significance of this colossal refinery in Nigeria and its potential impact on both regional and global scales. We'll shed light on the refinery's immense capacity, diverse product range, and its strategic role in reshaping the global refinery landscape. Additionally, we'll examine the benefits the refinery brings, such as reduced energy costs and job creation opportunities, while also addressing the challenges it may encounter, particularly in the context of global decarbonization efforts and Africa's green initiatives. As we explore the intricacies of this article, we aim to inform you of the opportunities and challenges presented by the Dangote Refinery and its implications for the energy sector and environmental sustainability.
Well, Peggy, thank you so much and your team for the Dangote Refinery article. We have received some questions, that we need to respond to in terms of this article. Can you just please take us through what's contained in this article?
Okay, Zuli, as you know that we are a credit rating agency that normally wants to focus on the emerging markets. We are pleased when we see that there is actual beneficiation in the emerging markets. So this is what is happening in Nigeria. We're seeing that instead of just exporting crude oil, Dangote has decided that you will build a huge refinery that will actually process the crude oil in Nigeria.
So you say it has a capacity of 650,000 barrels a day and currently producing 350,000. I just wanted to ask if this covers the economy of Nigeria.
Okay, so you'll notice that Nigeria it's a huge economy. When we're talking of a population of around 230 million people.
Yeah.
But with this huge refinery that Dangote is building, it is going to be enough to cover the oil needs of Nigeria, and also there will be surplus, especially for countries in West Africa like your Ghana, your Senegal. They will actually benefit, and the rest of the continent at large.
Well, this economic nugget also received some questions from stakeholders. So I think let's go through those. First question is, can you elaborate on the strategic importance of the Dangote Petroleum Refinery within Nigeria and global refining industries, particularly in terms of capacity and product range?
Okay, as we have already stated, that this is a 650,000 barrels per day refinery. And also we can see that it will actually influence the global oil industry.
Yeah, and it's quite huge. I think there was a comparison at some point about a large refinery from the Netherlands, where Dangote Refinery is actually bigger. And it is designed to cover 100% of Nigeria's needs, as you say. And then just looking beyond domestic consumption, there's an opportunity to export here, is that correct?
Yes, there is. And also one does not have to necessarily look at the fuel per se. One can look at also some of the byproducts like residual oil and other products that will be produced by the refinery. So it's actually it's called a game changer in terms of the African economy at large.
Yeah. All right. The second question we received, the article discusses the refinery's significant investment and its potential to impact regional and global markets. Could you provide further insights into how this investment is expected to influence pricing dynamics and market competition, especially in comparison to other major refineries? Yeah, I think from my side, just looking at the range of products, including the main ones being petroleum as well as jet fuel, this definitely should have an impact on markets. What are your thoughts on this?
Already we've seen the price of diesel in Nigeria coming down to around about 1,000 naira per liter, which in current value maybe is around 12 rand per liter, which is around 13 rand, 12 rand, depending on the rate on a particular day, which is a huge difference. Look at us, we're buying petrol for 25 rand per liter. Imagine if we could get it for, say, even 15 rand per liter. So you can see that already the coming of stream of the Dangote Refinery with the production of diesel has actually reduced the price. They are actually working on having petrol by, say, June, July. We're hoping that it will also influence the prices there.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, when it comes to the local market, they definitely will be disrupting prices, especially for marketers and other fuel companies that actually import the fuel. Having this domestic company in place will definitely have an influence on the local prices.
Definitely.
All right, let's move on to the third question. One of the challenges highlighted in the article is the potential conflict between the refinery's reliance on fossil fuels and Africa's green initiatives. How does the rating team assess the refinery's approach to addressing environmental concerns and its alignment with sustainable development goals? So that's the question there, Peggy.
I think this is one of the biggest challenges that the Dangote Refinery will have to navigate.
Or any refinery, really.
Yes, because now the cry is to go green. So that at least there is an aim. I think Nigeria's aim is by 2030 they want net zero emissions. So as you can see, oil is a fossil fuel. So it seems as if it is going against those targets. So this is one of the things that they will need to try and navigate. They can go like with biofuels, like your ethanol and so on, try to mix it with the oil so that at least their emissions are not as huge. But also with the latest technology that is used in this refinery, the emissions are a bit lower. I think the sulfur content is also much, much lower than ordinary refineries. So this might be a plus for them.
And it also helps that in general, African economies are not big emitters of carbon dioxide. And just going back to the rating team's assessment, I know there's ESG considerations. And I think to address this question, really, we need to focus on the environmental factor. I know from reading the methodology that you assess both the emissions as well as the mitigations in place. And you mentioned that Dangote Refinery actually is relatively limited when it comes to emissions as compared to other refineries, and I think that's definitely a good thing. But what are your thoughts on the refinery actually contributing to the natural ecosystems as well as environmental protections?
I think that is this is one of the assurances that the Nigerian government and everyone at large might want to get from the Dangote Refinery. They might want to promise that they will try to limit their emissions, especially on the byproducts that come from the refinery. Where are they going to? People need to know where they are going to dispose of some of the emissions that come from the refinery. I think once they give assurances on those, then the environment won't be very much affected.
Yeah, I think it's quite important to include these in the assessment. Going to the fourth question.
Okay, before you go, I think one of the criticisms that people have said, especially about this net zero emission and the environment, is that you find out that especially countries in the West actually developed using fossil fuels. Now there is this pressure on African economies not to use the same to achieve the same level of development that the countries in the West, your US, they used coal, they used oil. Your Saudi Arabia now used oil to be as rich as it is. Now, when it comes to African economies or emerging, there seems to be this pressure. I think it's a balance that the whole world will have to deal with to see whether Africa is given a chance to develop while at the same time limiting emissions, as we were saying.
No, very true. And just looking at the developments, and I think the next question actually goes to cover that. Generally, there's a move to your electric vehicles and so forth. So the question is as follows: with the with the increasing emphasis on renewable energy sources and adoption of electric vehicles, how does the rating team perceive the refinery's long-term viability and its ability to adapt to evolving market trends and consumer preferences?
I think, as you said previously, Zuli, this is a threat for all refineries, not only the Dangote Refinery. But one has to look at the adoption rate of EVs, especially in Africa. You look at a country like Norway, where now almost 80% of vehicles in Norway's roads are electric vehicles. But if you come back to Africa, the percentages are much, much lower, meaning we might need fossil fuels or crude oil and so on for the next 20 to 30 years. So this might give Dangote and other refineries in Africa a chance to make profits.
Yeah, and I think it also goes back to what you just said in the previous question about developed nations actually benefited from industrialization, and that's where Africa really should be going. And also, just looking at the viability of a petroleum company such as Dangote Refinery, on aggregate, demand and supply determines price, right? And just looking at the electric vehicle market, electric vehicles are generally more expensive, and there are other issues that come with electric vehicles, just looking at performance, as well as the infrastructure required to actually have an efficient transportation sector, all these charging stations and so forth, which in Africa we are quite lagging as compared to other developed nations, which means going forward we will continue to actually have a high demand for fuels, and therefore when it comes to the viability of this refinery, it seems it will be there for quite a long
A
time.
long time, yes. Because as you might say that we're lacking electricity, so we might actually we're lacking electricity, but we're trying to use electric vehicles. So we at a point where we're trying to find that balance. So this is why I'm thinking that refineries like this, yes, in the long term, maybe they may need to diversify and maybe produce more petrochemical products like your plastics and so on. But for now, in my personal opinion, I feel like there is a need for not less, but a bit more of these, so that at least African economies can also grow and develop.
True. And I think beneficiation in general will definitely assist African nations, not only focusing on fuel. And then there's a fifth question here. The article mentions the refinery's contribution to job creation and economic growth. Could you provide more details on the socio-economic impacts of the refinery's operations, particularly in terms of local community empowerment and regional development initiatives? And I believe that there are positive externalities because of the existence of this refinery. Be it employment, the increased GDP per capita, and local stakeholder empowerment in general. And also, just looking at Africa, the main challenge for African nations is infrastructure, as well as beneficiation. And I think this refinery actually covers both of those. It's actually a major breakthrough because it maximizes commodity prices. So instead of just exporting the oil as a raw material, this processing, it maximizes the commodity price for fuel, which is to the benefit of Dangote Refinery as well as Nigeria. And also, it does contribute to industrialization. And also, it should result in reduced fuel prices. Just comparing a nation where they don't have their own fuel, all of that has to be imported, and that also causes imported inflation. And then just looking at the domestic market now, transportation, quite reliant on fossil fuels. So this will also lower your cost push inflation because it is an input locally. So I think since the prices are actually competitive, it definitely will lower cost push inflation locally as well. What are your thoughts on this question?
Okay, so on looking at employment only, you will find that during construction, the Dangote Refinery employed 29,000 Nigerians and 11,000 Chinese and Indians. So that's a huge number that we're talking about. And the aim is to get that's 40,000 jobs that we created. So the refinery is looking at employing even at full capacity, maybe 250,000 people will get jobs because of that refinery. That includes both direct and indirect jobs in the downstream, like your fuel stations and so on. 250, a quarter of a million is not a joke. It's a huge number of people that will get jobs. And also in that Lekki region where the refinery is located, housing, those employers will need to get housing, transport. So there is a huge potential.
There's a lot of positive externalities
that can come from that. Yes.
Yeah, true. I think this is a good case study, and a lot of nations in Africa can actually learn from these developments, and also implement. As you know, Africa is well endowed when it comes to natural resources. So I think all of the countries really should actually invest in beneficiation. But thank you so much.
I'm imagining if we can do that even with our lithium.
With lithium.
Yes, and have the electric vehicle batteries built here in Africa instead of in China or in other areas.
Yeah.
So you'll see that unemployment will be a thing of the past because we're exporting jobs when we're exporting raw materials. True. And then we're crying that we have unemployment when we're actually exporting the jobs, because when they get to these developed countries, this is where these people get employed. But thank you so much for the questions.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for making time to respond. And thank you for tuning in this session of the Sovereign Africa Ratings Desk discussions. On the next session, we will be discussing the National Health Insurance Bill. And for more information on our publications on economic nuggets, issuer and sector commentaries, as well as credit ratings, please visit our website on sarratings.com. Thank you.